This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
And here we are on the latest edition of Sundays with Dominic and Vito. I am your host, Vito Geronimo Churco, alongside two great guests and buddies of mine that just can chop it up and talk all things sports and football and specifically football today. We're going to get into with the producer of Big Drew and Jim. That would be Shea Norling, and also a longtime NFL defensive lineman, a Detroit King alum, and Michigan State product in Kevin Vickerson. Great to have you both on here on Sundays with Dominic and Vito, a podcast that isn't truly released on Sundays, but we still call it Sundays with Dominic and Vito. And you don't even know who Dominic is. He's my brother, but he's not even along for the ride here. Hasn't been for a long, long time. But I am here with you two guys, and once again to break down a lot of things. But let's start with COVID-19 and the pandemic and the effect on sports. You know, it's been widespread, the effect that it's had on sports up to this point. It will continue to have the rest of 2020. So, Vic, I want to start with you as a former athlete, former football player, collegiate star at Michigan State, NFL player as well for a long time. How would it be, you think, without fans in the stands, which is, it sounds like a great possibility. And maybe it won't happen. Maybe we will have spectators in the stands come the fall for the football season. But if we did it at Spartan Stadium, in the NFL, across the country, what do you think that would be like?
You know, that's a televised practice, a televised scrimmage. You know, we have spring games as far as college, and to the point where, you know, the fans sometimes not filling up the stadium. Even some of these bowl games that's on the lower level side of it, some of these fans, they don't fill up half the stadium. So I think it's other marketing tools that you can use. And I think some of them has been going. It was selling every other section or every other odd seat in the stadium. Things of that nature, doing other things for that, and then just having guys come up, you know, just doing their thing that way on the collegiate side. But on the pro side, I mean, we have scrimmages in the summertime during mini camps with two teams together. And scrimmage the week before a preseason game. All of these things of that nature, I mean, it's still going to be a hit for the owners. And so even the workers in the local community, because of the concession stand workers and some of the workers that work the stadium and those other little jobs that no one else wants to do, groundkeeping, and some of those guys may still be around, but I'm talking about as far as around the stadium that you don't see those guys. So the fans will take a hit, the owners will take a hit, and the community will take a hit. But to me, I think that's how this thing is going to play out. But I think is that both boards are trying to find something that's worthy for both sides to still see benefits. I know they were saying something like $4 billion will be lost in the top five, Power 5 schools if no stands were in the stadium. So that's a big hit, man. If $4 billion is getting lost during that time period. So that's everything is about logistics and trying to get everything to sound right and to move forward with this thing calling the new norm. And it's an adjustment period for all.
And Kevin, it sounds like you really think it'd be a glorified scrimmage, and the financial impact would be significant from stadium to stadium, or you want to say venue to venue, throughout college football, throughout the NFL. Especially, Shea, as you probably already know yourself, obviously, being deeply invested in all of this, but especially collegiately speaking, from university to university, where they rely upon football during the fall for so much money as a university as a whole. Can you reflect upon that a little bit here?
I mean, we're already seeing it, aren't we? How many schools are cutting things like track and field and cross country? Central Michigan just cut sports. They're in danger of losing FBS status. Brown University cut cross country and track and field, I think, yesterday. So we're already seeing the effect of what no football could mean for these schools, or what no fans even could mean. And it hasn't even happened yet. It's like preemptive strikes to try and ensure that you're able to hold on to the money you need while not violating Title IX. There's so much that goes into this on so many different levels. So I think a lot of these universities are making their contingency plans ahead of time. And I don't know what that means. I know was the president at Michigan, I'm blanking on his name, but he said no fans or no students on campus means no fans at games, no games. So I think we're still kind of in a world where we don't really know what it's going to look like, whether we're going to have fans or not, whether we're even going to have sports. And everybody's kind of just, we're speculating against a beast that we still have no knowledge of. I don't know what it's going to end up looking like, but I know if we don't have fans, we don't have football, college football at the minimum cannot handle that. The NFL might not mind. They already don't care about getting fans in the stadiums. I don't know if college can handle it.
And then Mark Schlissel, by the way, he is the University of Michigan president. I'm not going to label it brilliant, but it's valid. It's called for what he said. Because guess what? These guys in college, they're student athletes, meaning they're students first. So the guys can't be on campus going to class every single day. Then you can't have football. You can't have sports in the fall. And I'm a guy, obviously, I'm a big advocate of sports. I love football just like the two of you. We all love sports here, as I noted earlier on when I started this podcast with the two of you, too. So we want sports returning in the fall. It would be abnormal, unforeseen, right? But we need these kids going to class in some manner before you can commit to a football season or any kind of sports season being played in the fall, realistically speaking. And, I mean, that's my opinion on it, and I'll let you speak in a second, Vic, too, about this, about Mark Schlissel coming out and saying this, a Michigan president once again. And also, on the other end of the spectrum, there's Jim Harbaugh, the Michigan football head coach, who is optimistic still about the season and wants it to be played. And here's the thing. I get both sides. I get Schlissel. He's in a different role, different kind of magnitude with his role as president of the entire university. And then Jim Harbaugh is the head coach of the football program. So they are going to have different viewpoints. And I think they both have the right to speak their minds. And I don't think it's ludicrous or blasphemous, as Stephen A. Smith would say, for them both to have these differing opinions right now as well, Vic.
No, I mean, when you see what the SEC has done in South Carolina, coming out and releasing the schedule and saying that, okay, we're going to go to fall classes when from a football season the first couple of weeks, and then after Thanksgiving break, everybody goes back to remote classes online. So that what that's telling me is you bringing everybody back for football season. Once Thanksgiving hit, hell, you go back home to now to the regular normalcy of what we've just been doing the last 4 months prior to the season, and that's going back to online classes. Me being a graduate, just these online classes, from going to being in class and face-to-face meetings with professors, and now you're going online. It's a different deal for some kids, and so that part of it will be effective on some of these incoming freshmen as well. Then you get the president of Michigan State saying that he's expecting to reopen campus with a task force, and he writes to inform that his intention is to bring Spartans back on campus this fall. So that's letting me know right there again, okay, everybody's not on the same page, but they all want the kids to come back for this same reason. And it's a copycat league, like we said yesterday, Vito. So once somebody sees somebody with some success in one area, please believe they're going to copy it and see if this can adapt and it can work for us as well. So when that come about, and the person with the right formula and the right ideas going forward, they're going to pass it around, and they're definitely going to talk and see what works best for the student athletes and the staff and the members of the universities. It'll be real interesting to see which way it goes in the next couple of weeks and the next month, because it's finna get down to the nitty gritty of the season's finna start.
Two recent MSU graduates, a lot of Sparty pride once again, and something really quick back on track here that Vic had mentioned. Vic and I talked off the air yesterday, Shea, about college campuses getting back in the fall, the football season, how it would be affected and what it would look like come the fall. Well, I think, like Vic just said too, with the three of us here, that somebody has to start the trend. And I think it's going to be a pro sports league. The NFL will be a trendsetter. Major League Baseball, the NHL. We've heard about the NHL already. They're not going to have the remainder of the regular season, and more power to them for making that decision with their commissioner, Gary Bettman, because nobody really cared about the rest of the regular season, especially here in Motown with the Wings. They're irrelevant, as we know right now, unfortunately. So you move on to the postseason, and that's the trend they're setting. Major League Baseball looks like we'll get started come the weekend of the 4th of July, or right around that time in early July. And the NFL is still moving along with its virtual offseason, like really nothing's happened, or to the best of their ability, while dealing with the current conditions with the coronavirus pandemic. So, Shea, I think Vic has nailed it on the head that collegiate sports as a whole, and especially for the fall with football, they're going to take a page out of these pro sports leagues, right? When they return and what they do when they do return.
With no stand, having 10 people around. And then they say, we heard more coaching and more particulars during the fight than we ever could have heard or could have imagined without the crowd. That had people speculating, was it better or was it not? Or was this better for TV? You know? And then you got the part where Las Vegas, they come up, and now they're looking into how the things played out down in Florida when they did the fight. Now you got the Walt Disney saying that they can host the rest of the NBA season. So it's a lot of stuff coming out of this, man. And a lot of people trying to put a lot of thoughts behind it, man. It'll be real interesting to see where we go.
And it looks like, once again, somebody's going to be the trendsetter, right?
I don't know who the trendsetter is. It seems doubtful that it'll be baseball right now with the way the labor union is going out against the ownership group. But I think it's different too when you're talking about trend setting from a professional sports standpoint to going to college, because again, the college athletes aren't being paid. They're not being taken care of in a way that professional athletes are being taken care of. The facilities aren't up to the same grade. They can't go back to their own home after the end of the day. You know, they do have to live, if not on campus, close to campus. And exactly. I think that can create some issues. I think professional sports leagues can kind of avoid travel where they need to. Like the NFL has canceled their international games, which was an obvious call. But you might see the NBA play all neutral site games at Disney World. You might see Major League Baseball play in Florida and Arizona. You might see, I mean, there are so many things that still need to be ironed out that it doesn't really seem possible for college football unless you go, okay, the Big Ten is going to play all of their conference games in Columbus, and those are the only games they're going to play. And you go, the Pac-12 is only going to play at USC, and you do that for every conference. Maybe that's the answer, and it will be something with limited travel and a bunch of neutral site games with no fans. But that is kind of where I see the difference between the options professional sports have and the options that collegiate sports have. Because then if you say, let's play all the Big Ten games in Columbus, you still have students who are going to Michigan or going to Michigan State or Penn State or wherever. They can't spend their entire fall in Columbus. It's not feasible.
She's right. I mean, he stole my thunder really right there, because I was going to say the difference too, like Shea just said himself so terrifically, is that pro sports athletes, they're getting paid. That's the biggest difference here. So they have more flexibility, more options on the table. They do it for a living, Vic. Where these collegiate athletes in all these different sports, they're still going to school and they're not being paid. And to me, Vickerson, that's the biggest difference here between the student athletes in college and how they're gonna operate when it comes to the football season and the other sports being played, and then the pro sports athletes.
But see, something not that the college sports is doing is this new deal with this Instagram followers and the NIL new NIL rule about the kids can get paid off of their followers and the school and that. I mean, so that they pick, so they can market their value more. If they're a 5-star athlete, 4-star athlete coming into college. So this is a new deal they're coming in and trying to implement to where the point they can pay these athletes. So that's something too to look into going forward, man. So another side of that is a lot of these highly touted recruits, 5-star recruits, not just going to go to any school. Now they're going to look at the marketing value of these colleges, and is this marketing value fits me, or can I be exploited in this marketing value and get the max value out of this for my talents. This is more of a business decision now going forward for these kids, even more so because now they're getting paid on the outside of their following, their Instagram deals, and the number of posts they post, how many fans. So it's a whole bunch that goes into it, but the basis of it is these kids can get paid for their followers and per post that they post. So that's something that's real interesting to see looking at going forward.
Well, then it also comes down to this, right? I mean, I think in the past, too, we could talk about this ad nauseum to these collegiate athletes and for sure the big-time stars in college being paid and for their likeness, right? When you had NCAA as a video game being made in previous years, they were never paid for any of that. And you had a guy like Johnny Manziel, Johnny Football there at Texas A&M, making all that money for his given university, right? With jersey sales that he never could benefit from. And I always was of the mindset regarding when it came to paying athletes in college is that if there's a demand for their autograph, why can't they go somewhere and sign autographs? If there is that demand for that man or woman in their respective sport, let them benefit from that and make some money from it. And it still might not be great money anyways, but it is some money for them to get by while they're in college and they're not being paid by their respective universities. And we could talk about it more in depth, but I'll just get your thoughts really quick here about what I just said regarding that too.
Terrell, when they was getting those tattoos for those jerseys and signing those stuff, the memorabilia stuff that all those guys got suspended. Was that Terrell Pryor Braxton? One of those, I forgot. I'm having a blank about the old state quarterback. I know it was just a deal right there when they got those tattoos and some stuff came about illegal benefits or whatnot. Then you got it. Hell, when I was in school, with the college football, 2001 and 2002, all those games, man, we was on those video games, and then a lawsuit came out later on from the kid that became a collegiate PFL player associate, the PA guy. I'm trying to blank on his name, but we went to Northwestern. The kid that came out and was asking about some of the funding and some of the stuff that for college athletes and going forward, and he became the collegiate PFA for the players. So that was one of those things, man. It was a movement that was going in the right direction, and now these guys can get paid, and they found a way that these can pay these guys off the national NIL, Instagram, and all this other stuff that they're doing, man. So the social media platform is taking off, and these guys can take advantage of it if they look into the rules and understand what's going on.
And Vic, you know what? And Shea, if there's demand for your likeness, for your autograph, once again, I believe more power to you as a man or woman. Go out there, sign some autographs, and get paid for it.
Doesn't that seem like a no-brainer, though?
Yes.
Like, how has that not existed? If you can go make money on your likeness, go make money on your likeness. That's what America is. I've never understood why the NCAA wants to roadblock kids at every single opportunity. It's insane.
But I think that's what this platform is doing now. Is letting these kids get funding off of their likeness and their popularity that they're getting. I mean, if you got 7,000 followers or 70,000 followers or 1 million followers or 5,000 followers, each guy is different. So, of course, if you got 70,000 followers, you're in a higher bracket. I think Kayvon Thibodeau and those guys at Oregon, or some of those Oregon guys, their market and those followers they have out there is crazy. I think they're leading it right now for the #1 landing spot for recruits because of the NIL. So that's something that's going to be a big part, man, going forward with these top guys, man. If you don't have a good marketing system around your university for these kids to exploit it, you might have
to go ahead and exploit it, right? I mean, if you have 70,000 followers, it's a lot more than me as a almost 27-year-old. I'm still a young lad, as I like to say, but truly, these elite college athletes, man, go out and get paid. If you got the following and the demand for your likeness and having people get your autograph, I just wish it was better. And what you're talking about, Vickerson, I think, Kev, that's a big start for these collegiate stars, and I hope it works out for them moving forward. And there's more legislation passed eventually by the NCAA as the governing body of all these different universities and student athletes. But I want to leave it at that for right now and move back to this, Vic, and your previous time under D'Antonio. At the very end of Mark D'Antonio's tenure at Michigan State, you served on his staff, so you got to know him very well, and you got to know the players very well subsequently too. And if you were still on, let's say, Mel Tucker's staff now, which I know you're not right now officially, maybe you will be one day, and I hope you are. You deserve it, man. I know you'd be really good for the kids there in East Lansing. But if you were right now on the staff and dealing with these kids during the pandemic, what would be your word of advice or words of advice to these guys as they're dealing with these unforeseen and abnormal conditions that nobody, the three of us have never dealt with either in our lifetimes?
I've been still in contact with him. I've been in the Zoom meetings the whole time with Coach Tucker and his staff this to this point. So I've been still interacting with the guys, but my biggest thing was adjustments, paying attention to details, finding yourself a new norm to the point where you can still get the same work in that you was doing before you left, staying consistent, having some type of daily routine, being consistent in that routine so you don't get out of shape. So when this thing starts back, you don't know when. We all don't know, so it's speculation around that. But at the same time, you don't want to be caught with your pants down, out of shape. And then you come into camp out of shape. Now that causes more room for injuries, pulled muscles, and things of that nature. So learn the playbook, so that way we can play fast when we get back going. Everything right now is more mental. Everything was more mental. So what we was doing, was going over through the guys, doing a lot of virtual meetings and plays and the defenses and whatnot. So as a staff, I think we gained a lot of ground going forward. But that's the part where it's up to see how the guys adjust to those times and how much attention to details those guys paid in those meetings. And really, everybody was on that same playing ground for those 2 months. You know what I mean? So some universities started spring ball early, so they had a couple practices in. They got about a week of practice in. I know like Northwestern and a couple other teams did some spring practice before the pandemic actually shut it down. Some of these guys were able to really get in a groove before they got to get cut off with the practice and whatnot. So that part of it can't do nothing about, because we had a new coaching hire and our situation was different at Michigan State. So we just got to roll with the punches we was given with, man. And now, we think you got to did a good job of getting a jump on recruiting, doing some things of that nature. So I'm just trying to keep these guys uplifted, upbeat, giving them motivational speeches, scriptures, and quotes from different guys that we've been talking to, put in place with to show leadership skills on our part. Dr. Coach Tucker has put in our place, man, with some great guys that he's worked with in the past. So passing knowledge down to these guys has been awesome. It's been real good the way they've been receiving it. So just trying to keep going and staying upbeat and positive with these guys, man, giving them confidence, knowing that, okay, it's going to start back. And when we start back, we will be just fine going forward. So I think we did a hell of a job doing that time of the rest that we was in, man, during this pandemic.
Are you concerned, though, at all, Vic, about the lack of in-person meetings? Obviously, you've had to do everything virtually via Zoom, like you said, and you can get to know the guys on a certain level via Zoom, but it's still not the same as the practices, right, during the spring and being in person with them as a group. So are you concerned at all regarding all of that? Because Mel Tucker is the new head coach going into his first year, in the fall as Michigan State head man. Are you concerned that because of the lack of that in-person activity that it could lead to a little bit of just maybe a lack of knowledge here and there regarding Mel Tucker's playbook and style of play and the way in which he wants the program run?
I really don't think the message was not passed through the guys. I think it was passed to the guys very clear. I think the way he coaches and the way he wants from us and his guys and coaches going forward, I think it's very clear. His message is very clear. It's being relentless. It's being getting after it every day, being consistent. And I think the coaching staff that he put together has did a hell of a job of displaying his message and passing his message to the guys. So with that being said, I think we will be just fine going forward. I really do. With the playbook, with the play calling, because some of the guys that we have on our staff, was on our roster rather, are great guys and great leaders. We have Antoine Simmons and some Naquan Jones and Xavier. Xavier, he's back there, and we got some good guys in the defensive side with Jacob Slade and those guys returning, Jacob Ponishu returning on the defensive line, and all these guys that's ready to step up and embrace this role that they got. We got some different seniors in different spots that's hungry, and some guys that's ready to step up, that's hungry, that's ready that really want it. So on both sides of the ball, and I think that's where we're going to step ourselves away and set another tone when those guys step up and be the Eagles and to be the leaders that we want them to be, and set those examples for those guys. But I think it'll be great going forward. I really do. I don't really see us having a real issue. You always want to have contact and get your body used to the contact and see where we at with a new system. But the hand we was played, we got to play it. That's what we got to do. So I think we're doing a hell of a job with that.
And Shea, as you know too, I know you love covering Michigan State. You're all about Michigan State, and this hire of Mel Tucker was really done in the 24th hour, from my knowledge, is what it definitely seemed like. So to sum it all up, my angle or perspective on the hire is that it was terrific, based on the fact that they pretty much got him last minute.
Yeah.
So to get him with his recruiting prowess from being at Colorado, what he was doing, starting to build up that program, and what he's done already, even on social media. How about his social media game, man? It's terrific. He showcased himself barbecuing the other day on Memorial Day. He's doing chats with former Spartans, and I love seeing it from Mel Tucker, and I like the hire thus far. And obviously, it's premature. We haven't seen the team on the field, and you got to give him some time to build up that program. But on the surface, you have the platform now, Shea. Your thoughts on the hire?
I think the number one thing I think about is he's recruiting well. For the first time in a very long time, Michigan State is recruiting well, and it's coming during the most unorthodox and difficult recruiting season we've maybe ever seen in college football. So I'm very impressed with how this has all panned out over the beginning, and I know it's going to be a long ways off before we really see it play out on the field. It's still not a great football team this year, and we'll see how they end up playing. And if they end up playing, what happens on the field this season. I think it's probably a 2 or 3 year process, but the perspective of how it all happened, you're right. It was the 24th hour, and to end up from where you were the day before, where, Luke Fickell had just said no. Every candidate that you wanted had said, no, we're not doing it. And it seemed like the university was screwed. It seemed like the program had no chance at getting a coach that they wanted, no chance at getting a coach of any quality. And finally, for, again, the first time in a very long time, they decided to actually open the pocketbook and spend some money and go get somebody. And they did it. And so I think from where they were 24 hours before they signed Mel Tucker to where they were after they got him, it was an incredible turnaround. It was an unbelievable 180. It was one that I didn't think the university or the athletic department was capable of pulling off, because I didn't think they'd spend money. So I'm seeing kind of identifiers that the program's moving in the right direction. Again, recruiting well, you're spending a ton, you're getting high profile coaching staff, you're getting high profile players, you're getting back into your recruiting hotbeds. And I think that's really important moving forward. It feels like they're kind of distancing themselves from what had become, I think, stale under D'Antonio.
Vic, it seems like Tucker got some very nice moolah. Man, I could use some of that too over here right now. A lot of us could, but no. Good hire. Seems like a good man. Very reputable dude. And I wanted to ask you this really quick, and then we'll move on to something else, into the George Floyd actually situation there in Minneapolis, which is huge and more important than all this we've already discussed up to this point. But really quick, wanted to get with you about this topic, Vic. How long do you think a college head man should get to build up a program? I mean, how long does it take, you think, to build up a program in the manner or way that head coach does desire?
This hire, and I've had some previous conversations with some guys about this, but this hire right now reminds me when Bobby Williams got here and when Nick Saban left. And Bobby came in and he had a hell of a recruiting class his first year. And then his second year, he had another hell of a recruiting class. His third year, Bobby had another good class, but then those first 2 years, his class was just starting to get on the field and play. I was his second class that he signed when Saban left. After the Gator Bowl, they won. After the Citrus Bowl, they won against Florida Gators. That's when Bobby came in, and it was like, okay, it was a new air, a new fresh air, a new vibe. So now we fast forward to the time now when it seems like the same type of deal, right? We had a successful coach that had success there and went on and left and retired. But in this case, Coach D retired, and now we get his guy that come in, and you got a guy that can have Nick Saban as a tutor that's been under his tutors, been with Urban Meyer, been with Kirby Smart, then played and then coached in the NFL for 10-year seasons. So this guy's experience is off the charts, and he knows how to win. He's been at all of the major top 5, or if not, universities that's in college football, at LSU, at Alabama, at Georgia, at Ohio State. So he knows what it takes. He's seen those formulas get put together by some great leaders that he was under. And I think he's doing a hell of a job transitioning Michigan State, the culture of Michigan State, back to that. When I was here, it was a lot of guys that was 6'5", more prototypical type of guys. And that was something that Coach Tucker was stressing about. He wanted prototypical size guys. He wanted size and everything of that nature. So he's trying to build his program off of the blueprint that he knows and what he knows about success. I think 2 years, 2 seasons, and I really think we'll be back. Because once again, once you get your guys in and the kids that you want to recruit and that you're recruiting, it's a different ballgame. So now, you 3 or 4 years, will be the ultimate right there for the good turnaround. But I think we want to work faster than 2 or 3 years, and that's just my mindset, and that's what I've been getting since I've been in these meetings. We need to turn around, and we need to turn around now, and we need to make it happen. So that's our mindset. That's his mindset, and that's the mindset he's been putting into the program since he's been back. We going at this thing full head of steam, relentless, and that's his message to these guys. We're gonna be relentless at everything we do. So he's definitely a man of his word. He's definitely is talking the talk and walking his walk behind it. So a lot of respect for Coach Tucker and what he's doing right now. So I definitely is got a lot of optimistic about the season, and I think it'll be good. I mean, the mind is a strong tool, man, and once you get some 19, 18-year-old kids to believe and know and get the confidence behind it, hey man, you can move mountains with that belief, So I'm really feel good about it, man. I really feel good about everything we got going. Yeah, we're gonna have some bumps in the road, but I don't think it's gonna be too bumpy of a road.
And Vic, speaking of being relentless, that's the message being preached in the mantra, right, moving forward for MSU football under Mel Tucker.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You're a relentless man, always have been yourself. I mean, I've known you since the days of Somebody when you helped out that summer camp tour. And the summer of 2016, I was alongside, got to know you, and you looked
Yes, sir.
out for me, and you were relentless, man, and looking out for me and doing your thing and helping out with SMSB and since with helping out the youth I know as well with your own camp, Vic. And, you know, you're a guy from Detroit King. You went there, played there. And I look at Michigan State's roster right now, Vic, and unfortunately, it's not a lot of kids from the inner city of Detroit.
We got to take back Detroit. That was one of the things that I said I don't want to keep talking about when I was there, but hell, when we came out, the class that I was in, those two classes, we had myself, Robert Strickland, Eric Knott, Damon Dowdell, Roger Maples, Daryl Hamilton, DeWine Moss. All of these guys was top guys at their respective high schools. You know what I mean? And rated high in the state of Michigan. And we landed them all. I mean, so when you got something like that that's going on and a history of these schools in the inner city coming to Michigan State, wanting to be at Michigan State, it's a difference. I mean, right now, that Antonio years, the 13 years he was there, we had a lot of success. So the kids now that was in that era, like when I was coming out, hell, it was all about Michigan because Michigan was the upper hand of the state. It was Michigan. You know, 3 of my high school teammates went to Michigan with Braylon, Ernie, and Larry Harrison. So you come back now, and I was the eyeball going to state. So I think now Michigan State has some success since the last decade. And I think it's to the point where these young kids, this is what they've been seeing. So the Michigan State era is definitely got a way to blossom and boom to where we can get back and get all these kids in the inner city and take back the city of Detroit for recruiting for Michigan State, man. And that's big to me. And that's big because I was one of those kids that came out of the inner city that had the dream of playing college football, that had a dream of getting a degree, that had a dream of going to the NFL and having a career as well. So I see the same fire in these young kids' eyes, man. And when I talk to them and when I've been recruiting them, so it's like I just want to show these guys that it's possible right here, and to do so in the city, being from the city and going up our way up the road, man, and having some success on the classroom and in the field. So I think that's big for that message to get pointed across to these guys so they can understand that you can and you will have opportunity to fulfill all your goals.
And it's about making a better life for these kids, right? Coming out of the city of Detroit, carving out a great path for them collegiately, academically, athletically, and after football too, and after college. And there's no great transition to this, but we got to get into the George Floyd death. Mm-hmm. And Floyd allegedly used a counterfeit bill at a store in Minneapolis and subsequently was arrested for forgery. And that wasn't the end of it, obviously. The controversial ending of his life is why this topic is still relevant and people are protesting in Minneapolis right now. You have it all throughout Minnesota, seemingly. And it's because of how Floyd was killed, with the police officer having his knee on the neck of Floyd, causing Floyd not to be able to breathe. Floyd uttered the phrase, "I cannot breathe," numerous times, and the cop still did not remove his knee from Floyd's neck. Once again, Floyd subsequently passed away on Monday night then, fellas. A sad incident, and it speaks truly about the times that we live in 2020, where racism is still a huge issue. And I think a lot of us here, Vic and Shea, thought it would have never been as big of an issue right now, but it is. It's ongoing in Minnesota, throughout the country. Mm-hmm. And this Floyd incident is the biggest incident to date that speaks volumes about how bad racism still is in the United States in 2020. And Vic, I'll get with you first on this one about your thoughts regarding the death of Floyd.
It's sickening. It's saddening. because a person did a heartless, emotionless act. When you become an officer, you get sworn in under oath and the whole nine. I don't know the exact steps, but I know you get sworn in and you are protected. You are sworn in to protect and serve. Those other officers that was there. If I see somebody doing wrong as a kid, you tell them what? You either gonna tell them to stop or you tell them to do something, right? None of those guys stepped up to do that. In fact, the other two guys was right next to him on the side of him. One was holding his arm, one was on his back, and the other one was on his leg, while the other officer had his knee pressured on his neck. If I'm getting pinned down and I know I'm at this point I'm detained, the cuffs are on, I'm not moving. Why couldn't it be as simple as getting this man onto his feet and then seeing what the issue was? But instead, you got a man begging out for his life, screaming out for his life. He can't breathe, and you sit there emotionless with your hand in your pocket with all your weight on this man's neck. That's crazy to me. So now we see the other guy that was standing up, Officer Tile. He was standing up, but he looked back and you can tell on his face that he knew that it wasn't right, but at the same time, it would seem like it was a hidden agenda amongst all the officers that was there. And the hidden agenda was, okay, this is what we're gonna do, and this is what it is. And the act was carried out. That was a hidden agenda in the act amongst all those officers that was on that scene. Because for one not to step up, you disobeyed, and now you're not being loyal to the oath that you took when you were sworn in to Minnesota police officer as a Minnesota police officer. So now all of these things come into play. I mean, how much longer, how much more do we have to take it as? I mean, I'll read you off of something, man, and it's like you got Freddie Gray, Eric Gardner, Walter Scott, Yvonne Smallwood, Randy Evans, Claude Reese, Clifford Glover, Keith Scott, Ahmaud Arbery. You got Stephen Clark, Jordan Edwards, Jordan Davis, Alden Sterling, Ayanna Jones, Mike Brown, Tamir Rice, the Charleston Nine, the Trayvon Martin, Sandra Bland, Philan Castile. Like, when is it going to be enough of senseless acts being carried out on melanin people? I mean, just it's to the point where, what do you do? I mean, I have nothing but boys. I have all sons. So me raising my kids and raising my boys to go out into the public, do I teach them the laws now? Even more so of the conversation I have to have with my sons is, if you get stopped by an officer, say yes, sir, no, sir, put your hands up and make sure your hands are visible at all times. When you get to, do I coach my son through, if you getting arrested, have your body limped, and when you get you know that these different procedures. Me coming up in Detroit as a black young man, I've been pulled over numerous of times. Car suspicion, we thought you was a mistaken identity, all kind of stuff. Getting a gun pulled on me by officers because of my size. Step out the vehicle and the guy grabbing his gun, pointing at my chest, just because he's intimidated because I'm a 6'6", 345-pound black man. And that's the part that white society, some of these other males in society don't see and have never had to deal with. Coming from the inner city of Detroit, you see so much that's not getting televised. I mean, so many in the era where we were saying in 2000, early 2000, there wasn't no camera phones. In 99, there wasn't no camera phones. So a lot of this stuff, how many other incidents like this went on? Police brutality. We've been saying it for the longest. 1968 riots, 1996 with Malice Green, 1995 with with Rodney King. You know, how much longer is this cycle going to continue? And then you got a leader and the president that's like pushing and like giving a hey for this. And that's the part where it's kind of frustrating because now the things and the tweets that he make out and send out make this it's throwing fuel to the fire. When you call the guys that's looting thugs and things of that nature, like, what are we doing? We can address a nation of people more and diffuse a problem more than ignite it because of your words. It ain't what you do, it's how you do it. In a lot of these situations, what's been going on, these cops, most of them come from suburban areas. So when they kind of come to an inner city area, they don't know how to interact with a mass of people that's black or of people of color, because some of them never been around that environment. Some of them guys are coming in and being brought in from out of town or out of other cities to come in and work in an urban area. So all of that got to come into play when I think when the hiring is coming about. Not all cops are bad, but not all cops are good. I got love for those who love all. You know, and that's the part where I'm not. It's a sensitive subject and it's a hard subject to talk about, especially when you've seen that these acts get carried out over and over and over. I mean, even in Ypsilanti, Michigan, a couple of days ago, police officer picked up a girl. I mean, and just started punching her. What is the brutality during the arrest? What is that first issue is for you to pound on and beat on when I'm looking at you as protect and serve? I mean, some of these things, you got a taser, you got a baton, you got pepper spray, you got different things that you can use to tame a situation if it's due to that, if it's cause for that. You know what I mean? So I think when you're trying to put a bullet in someone, it's for immediate, definite threat of my life's in danger. If I'm coming at you and I'm bare arms, man, come on. I mean, it should be a way I could be able to diffuse that situation. Some of these things, just how they've been playing out, it ain't been right. A kid been getting killed, overkill, 17 times, coming in my house while I'm sleeping, shooting me, thinking it's a home invasion. There's so many different cases that's out there. I mean, and it's sad and it's sickening. But then you got the looters and the protesters being the National Army being called on these guys. But we can come to Lansing, Michigan, and protest with AR-15s and AK-47s and assault rifles out like it's no issue, and nothing says nothing. And we on the Lansing Capitol, but nothing happened. But these guys are standing up and fighting for something that's right, and it's still an issue. You know, and that's the part where I don't agree. I don't agree with the tearing up the community and doing the things of that nature. But at the end of the day, I think when you're dealing with hurt, dealing with pain, frustration, and all of these different type of emotions that you're going through, sometimes that's what happens. I mean, you act out off emotion, and it's going to become senseless acts. So the looting and the rioting and the burning of the houses and the burning of the stores and tearing up the community, I get it in a way, but I don't get it. You know what I mean? And so that part, I think as a whole, we can do better as getting our point across. But at the same time, we've been quiet and turning the cheek for so long. And some people don't only know how to take action. That's maybe some way people only know how to take action.
I think I've heard a lot about there are better ways to get the point across, and I just tweeted this. Colin Kaepernick took a knee, and the president said, "Get that son of a bitch off the field." So
Exactly.
I think the better way has been tried, and it's either been ignored or flat out condemned. And eventually, violence is the only thing you have left.
Exactly.
And I think anybody that's claiming that George Floyd's memory has been lost in the riots is placing their priority on property over black lives. And I think that's wrong.
Perfect.
And then, guys, really quick, too, I mean, the tweet that Vic had started to mention, it directly refers to as the African Americans and protesters as thugs in Minneapolis. So that's going to induce this kind of protesting. You know, you can do the peaceful protesting. Colin Kaepernick tried that out, and Shea just nailed it on the head with that. He tried it out, and what did it lead to? You know, you got called the son of a bitch, and then you get these guys protesting throughout Minnesota, and they're being called thugs by the guy with the most power in the country, arguably in the world, right? The most powerful nation in the world. So when he's doing that, you're going to see people react in this manner. And with your young boys now and what you fear with them and what you have to teach them because of police brutality, and it's been ongoing for so long. Racism has been systemic. It is, and sadly, sad but true, it will continue to be. It looks like, too, throughout the country, Shea. And the one thing I want to get your comments on is the reason for violence against these men and women, and especially the young black men, when these young black men don't even have a firearm. They're not even being violent or trying to be violent. And then you act like you do like this police officer did when George Floyd didn't have a weapon on him. He didn't do anything to warrant what the officer did to him with his knee on his neck, eventually killing George Floyd. It was just so uncalled for. The amount of violence there obviously exerted by that police officer.
9 minutes, Vito.
Right? And he kept saying, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And all of that, like you said, Vic, was recorded on video with people's, you can't get away with that anymore either. And the police officers, and not just the guy with the knee on Floyd's neck, but all of those guys surrounding Floyd too, had the audacity still to stand there and support the officer that did exert the force with this knee on Floyd's neck. They didn't do anything about it. They didn't stop or tell the officer to stop, to get your knee off of the guy's neck, Shea. And that was so ugly. And that's the definition of police brutality and the reason for protests, like what we're seeing right now.
It's not even police brutality, man. It's extrajudicial murder. It is murder.
It's murder. There's more. Yeah, it's not just brutality. Man, you're right. It's murder. Full-fledged murder. You're right.
Have you ever boxed? Have you ever boxed for 3 minutes? Or just did any kind of exercise for 3 minutes? So let's say you wrestle this man to the ground, right? Now, whatever force that took, because they said he was sitting on his car. Okay, for now, for you to wrestle me to the ground, that's at least 2 to 3 minutes right there. Then you put your damn neck, your knee on my neck. Have you ever been tired and somebody put their pressure on your neck, cutting off your air? What, for 9 minutes? I understand the process and the stuff that went on. He ain't just got on the ground. They had to get him on the ground, looked like, because they rushed him on the ground because it was 3 guys on his leg, on his back, and on his neck. So it took 3 of y'all to get him down. Y'all got him down. Now he's in cuffs. He's in cuffs.
And what was he doing, right, to warrant that from that officer? I mean, he was down for the count, not doing anything. Once again, the guy should have released the force, released his knee from Floyd's neck. He could tell he wasn't breathing. He kept uttering the phrase over and over again. And once again, it was so.
You know what he was doing? He was being black. That's really what it comes down to.
In America today, even in 2020, sad but true. You're right.
This man's mouth started foaming. And when they lift him over and put him on the ambulance bed, they snatched him. They didn't try to put him on like he was just a human. Like he was like somebody that would care for a guy. Okay, that he's just fucking snatched his body and yanked his neck and yanking him. And then when he got on that ambulance truck, his body was limp. He was dead before he left the scene. To me, in my eyes, he was dead before he left. If you look at the picture, he wasn't passed out. I think at that point he was dead from the time he left that scene. The young man that seen that and recorded that, his life has changed forever. His mindset, he is distraught. His mind is messed up from that day going forward. I heard him talk about it on the other day on CNN. The guy's in crying, and I'm talking about real tears. Grown man crying in real tears. That's hard, man, to get a man just to cry on national TV about another man that he don't even know. That's how distraught this man is in. Like, that's how much pain he in. It's just not. This is a senseless act. This was an act that was thought out through some racist guys that carried this act out, and they used their power of their badge and that gun on their waist to take a life of this innocent man.
And if you look at,
yeah, I mean, it's like it's having no heart, right? The officers, not just the one.
Well, I think it's
no
even more importantly, it's the entire system of police in America. You look at his track record, and he has a history of either beating or killing minority people in situations that don't warrant it. And so I think you look at the police force and the government that has enabled him to do this throughout his entire career with no recourse. And that's kind of what we're reconciling across the country is there is a systemic racism in American police. And whether every cop is racist or not, I don't think every cop is just racist, but I do think the system, the police system, and there's a level of indoctrination there, is racist.
Yes. The Constitution was set up before all of us was born. And this was a time that was unprecedented back then with a lot of racism filth in it. So until those things get really rewritten, it won't be a change. Now, if you start, like we talked yesterday, Vito, and you have these officers sign, put them on insurance to the point where, okay, if you do something wrong that dishonor your badge, you lose your job and you can go to jail. Instead, right now you're getting a spank on the wrist. You go get 30 days home or go on work relief when you come back later on, or you just got to be forced to get off the force. But you still get your freedom as a citizen. That's BS. When we come in this thing and knowing that, okay, these officers had a hidden agenda. These officers carried this act out, and these officers knew that this act, whatever they carried out, they wouldn't have repercussions for it, because so many officers before them did the same thing and had nothing done to them. So now it's a monkey see monkey, and like I said, copycat lead. Now my thing is about the other officers. Okay, if we committed crime, all three of us on this phone committed crime, and I'm the only one that do it, but you in the car, Shea, and Vito, you in the car, but we all get pulled over. And we coming from a crime scene, I'm not going to be the only one to go to jail. They taking all of us to jail because you're an accessory to the crime, correct? Mm-hmm. All these officers stood by and watched that man take that man's life.
All four of them.
All four of them.
Happened. Yep.
All four of them need to be punished because now y'all didn't abide by the protect and serve order of the community, of the oath that you guys had took. Because if you seeing this man hurt this citizen and this citizen crying out for ambulance relief, some type of medical relief that he cannot breathe, one should have been on the EMS call saying, I need the EMS at this site now. Another one should have been telling the other dude, get off his neck. And the other guy should have been telling him to stand him up. And we would not have this issue in this problem right now.
I agree, Vic. I mean, the system is flawed, but I think it comes down to this, too, the basic principle of having morals and having a heart. Have some heart. You see the guy dying, slowly but surely, and you don't do anything. You don't act. And it's your job to protect, right? To protect citizens of your respective city. He wasn't protecting. Nobody was protecting George Floyd there. I mean, they led to his death. They allowed him to stay on the ground, like you said, Vic, already for 9 minutes straight, as the recording proved. And he died right there. I believe it too. And that's why they should all be charged with murder. Or, for sure, the guy with the knee on Floyd's neck, and everybody else is an accessory to the crime, like you said, Vic. If we were all in a car, that's a perfect analogy there, because if we were all in a car that got pulled over and you did something, but we were still in the car with you, Shea and I both, we would still be charged with something, right? An accessory to the crime we would be charged with. So we wouldn't go unscathed. Yeah, you can't get away with it. Everybody was there, so was guilty to some degree of allowing it to happen.
Yes.
They have to be charged with something. And to prove there's repercussions, like you said, and Shea, there's never been, like Vic said already, there's never been repercussions truly for all of these acts and crimes in the past where, this has been happening for years and years, for a century plus now, right? Without any kind of repercussion for these dudes. They've gotten away with it unscathed, and largely because of the fact, it hasn't been recorded, right? We didn't have this technology in the past, but we do now in 2020. So nobody gets away with it completely. But
that's how the body came on. That's how the body came about. Because we had so many incidents with officers. Man, you know what? Every officer got to wear a body cam. They came in under the Obama stuff.
They do wear the body cam now, but they still commit acts of brutality. They still kill, or they just don't care because they're so confident in institutional protection that nothing will happen. Look at the guy who killed George Floyd. He's still not arrested. They arrested a CNN reporter on the scene before this guy. Exactly. I mean, institutional protection helps and enables officers at every step of the way. No matter what they do, they have some level of institutional protection. They can go and kill someone for being black, and they're institutionally protected by the American police force.
That officer had a fleet of officers surrounding his house. The front, the side, he had a fleet of officers in tactical gear outside his house, protecting his house. Now, if you got to go through all of that, and you know that this guy is wrong, why are you still protecting this man of that nature? Instead, these police officers can be protecting and serving the community for the people that are looting. They can get this tamed. But instead, we got to watch this man's house. That's crazy to me.
When he's guilty of murder.
The same thing they did with the guys down with the Ahmaud Arbery. They protected his house, but the Magnum militia came out and enforced the Second Amendment, and they came with a regulated militia. And now they had the right to bear arms, the same firearms that you guys were walking out with in the streets with these. Now we got the same right to do it, and we exercising our Second Amendment. So that's the part where now you finna see a lot of organized groups, a lot of organized leaders in the black community come up with these militia groups, because now it's time that these guys are ready to take action. These guys have been trying to take this action for the longest. And now that it's time, I think that's what they on. That's the message they're trying to send, that they're tired of it. And we are tired of it. I'm tired of it. I mean, for me to be a black man myself, my brothers, my cousins, my sons, my friends, my ex-teammates, even the guys I don't know, it's too much heartache until it hits your front door, until it hits home. That's when it's too late. You know what I mean? But that's when it's gonna hit harder. But that's what I'm saying. We need to get on this now. And I think people have been trying to take the right action about it. And that's not just blacks. It's not just Mexicans. Some white America is coming out and standing up as well. Because if you got a heart and you understand what took place, you can see all the wrong that's in. You can see all the wrong that's in that, and it shouldn't be an issue with you standing for something that's right.
It comes down to that, right? Standing up for what is right, what you believe in, what your heart tells you to do, what is morally right to do, and that's why I think everybody has to unite in the country against this police brutality, systemic racism, to end it, nip it in the butt, and or at least to curtail it. right? You maybe never can end racism because there's always going to be stupid people, but we can do a lot better with curtailing it, right? And nipping it in the butt and teaching our youth, no matter what color of skin they are, to not act in this manner and not to be racist, plain and simple, Shea. That's how I look at it.
We got to help the youth understand, and we got to help. I mean, the majority of the youth, I think, are more technology sound than we were. So a lot of this stuff, they can look up and research way faster and get the information way faster than we were when I was coming up. I mean, we had internet and everybody didn't have these technology phones that we have in our hands now on a daily basis. You know what I mean? So the research is there for you to look at, for you to get educated about certain situations and on how to go about it, how to move, and rules and regulations, man. And it's a loophole in every rule, you know? And that's the part where I think it's going to get real interesting, man, to see how these officers have been playing this loophole, and somebody can find out a way to really punish these officers for their action.
Make the cops accountable. And Shea, what do you think the nation has to do to rectify this issue? I mean, what has to be done to help out with, ending once and for all, or once again, at the very least, curtailing it to a significant degree, systemic racism in our country?
I think you look at what's happened in Detroit, because it's interesting that since the riots in the 60s, there really hasn't been a major, social outbreak related to police issues. And I think a big part of that is you go back to the 70s and 80s, there was a massive effort to get Black people in the police force and elevate them into positions of power and get them into places where they can kind of impart change on how the police force works. And it's kind of helped Detroit because there have been coalitions between, Police Chief James Craig and social justice people. So I think, one, we need to get more minorities in positions of power inside the the infrastructure of the American police force. And I think we also need to educate white youths on what their white privilege means and figure out how they can reconcile that, because there's a big myth in this country right now that white privilege doesn't exist. But I go to sleep in my bed every night and I don't worry about a cop coming in my house and shooting me. I go walk down the street and I don't worry about getting shot. So I do experience white privilege, and in more ways than that. There are hundreds of ways that I've experienced it in my life. And I think there has to be a level of reconciliation and understanding that we do have that. And there are ways to change it. And that is by elevating minority communities into higher positions where they are able to impact change. And we aren't doing that right now at any level. In government, we're not doing that. You look at the highest levels of government, it is all old white men. You look at most of the police forces in this country, they're run by old white men. And you look everywhere you go, that's what you see. So even in sports, man, we go back to sports. How many Black owners are there in the four major sports?
2.
4, 5, that's how many Black billionaires are there? You look at where is the power, and it rests in white people's hands. And I think that at some point we need to figure out a way to change that and to elevate minority communities to a point where they do have a louder voice, because right now they aren't being heard. And that's why you're seeing Minneapolis burn.
I mean, admitting there is white privilege, and that as two white men, you and I, we have and benefit from white privilege. It's just a fact. It is. And like you said, you look at who's empowering the government federally, nationwide, and locally even. It's a lot of older white men and women, I think especially white men too, when you really look into the numbers. And it's 65 and up, these people that control our government at the federal level, it seems like, too. And with the president and even the Democrat nominee right now, Joe Biden, running for president here. So you have two older white dudes, and we're the young up-and-coming white, Black, just young people and minorities, right? Running for office that can gain power, leading to more of a voice for minorities.
It's designed, and when it's designed to come out a certain way every time, it's not designed for us. It's designed for you. And that's the thing that we have to come to grips with. It's not when Obama got in there, it was remarkable. It was so off the charts. It was not designed for President Obama to get in. It was not designed. It was designed for Nixon. It was designed for Trump. It was designed for all these other presidents before that. That's what it was designed for. I don't care how you draw it up. When it's designed a certain way, that's how it's going to go. I don't care how you try to twist it and put something else on it. But when it's designed that way, that's how it goes. I mean, we can try to make a different outcome and the outcome to be different, but it's not going to work when it's designed that way.
And then there's not enough young people voting. It's a lot of the older people in their 60s, 65 and up, once again, that are voting in these elections, including in the presidential election, which helped out with Trump getting power, winning the election in 2016. We don't have enough young folks, men and women of all skin colors from all walks of life, voting in these elections. We need that to happen as well to empower them, the young black men and women. That needs to happen, guys, and it needs to happen already coming election. If we want to really make an impact moving forward and get more minorities in office in these high power positions throughout the country, we need to have, myself and other millennials and people younger than me going out there to the polls and voting.
No doubt. But the success rate and the change rate when we do go vote, do we really see results? Or are we just going out to say we voted and then we still get the same old results from the Constitution that's going to come out to be anyway? So I think that got a lot to do with the mindset of some of these other guys, the younger kids that's trying to vote, or some of the middle-aged kids that were voting when they were younger, see no change, and now they like the hell with voting and just let the presidency be what it is. And deal with life how it goes. You got so many different mindsets out there that look at voting on a presidential election so different. So when you have that going on against different races, Mexican, black, Jew, white, black, it plays a different role in each culture. You know what I mean? You got Trump coming back saying, get all Mexicans out of the country, build a wall, get all foreigners out. He came in taking people away from their kids, their families, because they didn't have paperwork. But they've been here for years, been citizens in the United States for years. But yet you can go out and you can marry Ianka Trump or whatever.
Melania. Yeah.
He's more foreign than foreign. But you're not trying to get her back out the country. See, it's a double standard. And we've been living with these double standards for the longest. The kid in Charleston can go in to shoot up a church and come out with handcuffs. The kid can go out and shoot up a school in Florida and come out in handcuffs. We eat a bag of Skittles and come out in a body bag. We don't have a seatbelt on, go into a prison, come out hung and dead. The double standard is not there. The communication is not there. The relationship and the trust is not there. So how can you tell me to go vote? How can I tell this young man to go vote? Why would he listen to me when the history has been telling them, man, you had just your vote don't count. What you want, what you believe, what your rights are, it don't matter. Because here's the agenda over here. This is what we're gonna do. So when we do this, let's take a grain of salt and be real and be real with it and say what it is. This is what's been going on for years.
Yep.
So then, Vic, how strong is that sense of apathy you believe among the younger crowd of African-American men and women, young African-American men and women growing up now that have seen how the history has continuously repeated itself? How strong do you think that sense of apathy truly is?
I mean, I think it's strong. I mean, because at the same time, look at what's still going on. What changes have really been made? I could put on a clip from 1968. I can put on a clip from 1995. I could put on a clip from 1996, 2000, 97, whenever. And our message as a black culture, as a black community, has still been the same about police brutality. NWA came out with a song, Fuck the Police, and got so much turmoil behind it. So much turmoil behind it. But that's how the young black community, the young black male especially, that's how they were feeling.
And there is distrust, right? Like a lack of
you look
respect
at it,
and trust for the police, right? And because of the history.
You look at the kids in New York with the stop and frisk. That was an issue. The governor told everybody stop and frisk everybody that's a person of color and make sure they don't have anything. If they got something on, take them to jail. Same thing they did in California. That rule and that law still was getting carried out. And they put that in place 20 years ago. It was still getting carried out. They was putting cases on people. Dominicans, Puerto Rican, black, all in New York City. California, it was the Mexicans, young blacks. Detroit, it was blacks. Chicago, it's the young blacks. Mexican people. So, like, how can we change these young kids' mindset when they say they don't want to vote? If they say they want to vote, that's all fine and dandy as well. I'm fine. I would rather them vote in a mass and more than a couple sporadic throughout, you know what I'm saying, the community, instead of a handful. If we took that and adapted that mindset as a whole, we can make this change. And we've been trying to come out and do some, and some leaders been trying to come out and push the vote ballot. But at the same time, I understand the mindset of these young kids that's not voting.
You know, and I think another part of this is you look at the candidates that we have and the options that we've been left with.
They wasn't strong.
A big part of why we have these candidates is because young people aren't allowed to vote. You look at the video from Michigan State when the lines were so long outside of East Lansing polling booths because so many college kids were trying to vote that none of them could vote. And that's why you end up with candidates like Joe Biden and candidates like Donald Trump that no matter what you vote for, you're voting for a system that has represented your oppression for the last 200 years. I mean, that is what Joe Biden represents. He is the return to normal. And the normal that he returns to is the one that has oppressed minority communities for 200 years. So that's why we're left with this in large part, because young people aren't allowed to vote. And the ones that are educated don't have the opportunity because our voting system is so difficult. So I do think vote by mail would change a lot of that. But man, it's dark times right now. It doesn't feel like there's a whole lot going in the right direction.
And that's the thing really quick, guys, right? I mean, you look at the candidates, the guy in office, President Trump, a lot of people now don't like him more and more. I know we don't definitely agree with those policies and the mannerisms of him. But then you look at the Democratic Party and Joe Biden being the presumptive nominee now for the nomination, and it's not much better. It's not much better than Trump in the Democratic Party. The Democrats as a whole aren't much better than Trump right now. And you have Nancy Pelosi. How old is she too as a Speaker of the House? It's like these people have run their course. I mean, they're archaic with their policies and ways and the things they say, and we want something new. We want something fresh, and there's nothing fresh in either party. So it's not just the Republicans led by Trump, which really has become the Trump party, right? It really has at this point. But also the Democrats are old, are archaic, and we want to move on from them as well. And that hasn't happened, Vic and Shea, and it's 2020 and it still hasn't happened. Well, and once again, what those guys represent, you know, the man in office and Joe Biden represent things of the past and oppression, right, of the past and the traditional ways which have led to the country being as divided as it is.
And the other thing that they are, besides old, is rich. Because you look at Nancy Pelosi denying stimulus checks during the pandemic to help the American citizen while she gets gelato out of a $20,000 refrigerator in her kitchen. So there is a disconnect between those in power and the people who are actually experiencing suffering financially, medically, whatever it might be. There's not a connection there.
Correct. No relatability, Vic, and that's probably a big reason for the sense of apathy, right? The reason for it among the younger voters, and not just African Americans, but Caucasian males and females, young Asian males and females. These people see what these elections have resulted in the past. There's been no change, and the voting system intact right now, like Shea had said, is erroneous. It's archaic. There has to be a change with that, and there hasn't been a change. Even now, once again in 2020, when we're a modern country, one of the most modern countries in the world, if not the most modern country in the world, right? With so much darn technology at our disposal, right? That we can readily use, and still we're at this point in our country.
That's the disconnect. That's the biggest part of the disconnect is what you guys just all hit on, man. There's non-relatable. There's no innovation for the youth. It's no time out that's really getting spent on the youth. Everything is about the older generation, and that's where it need to change. These guys, most of these kids didn't even know how to get registered to vote, but their heart was in the right place. You know what I mean? So you can't blame them for that, but at the same time, why weren't they allowed to vote still?
Because the older people in office, right, the 65 and up year olds in office right now that have the highest, most powerful positions in the country and the government, right, they don't care enough about allowing the youth to vote or making it easier, at the very least, on them to vote.
Because they know it means their job.
Exactly.
Right, their jobs are, on the line, right? If they have the younger people vote, have more accessibility to voting, they know that. I agree full-heartedly, Shea, with that sentiment.
So our population don't grow. It don't grow without the new production, right? The new production is who? The new population is who? The youth. 18. When the kid get 18 or older, they say, okay, now you can vote. With 21 or older, now you can vote. Now your voice counts. Do it really? You know what I mean? Like the whole me registering to vote. If I'm a citizen and I got a social security number, I don't see what the issue is. Why should I have to register? You should put my valid social security number down. I should be able to go in and vote. And now that's part of the process of being innovative, where we can make these rules different going forward to the point where I don't have to do all this extra XYZ, and my voice still can be heard because I'm a citizen. If I pay taxes here, and if I'm living in the United States, and I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do as a man in the country that I'm living in, my voice should be heard.
You got to look at who are the people who are pushing so hard against it, and what is the reason they're pushing so hard against it. It's been proven, empirically, that mail-in ballots does not increase voter fraud. It doesn't. They do not.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of politicians, specifically on the right, will tell you that mail-in ballots would cause fraud. The reason that they're saying that is not because it would actually cause fraud. Again, that's been empirically proven false. The reason they're saying that is because they know if more people can vote, they won't have jobs anymore.
And then there's a pandemic on top of all this. What you're saying is true, Shea, too. It's empirical evidence, right, that proves it from over the years. But then also on top of all that, there is a pandemic. It's not even safe to go out of our homes at times, right, into certain places in a big line, right, in a mass gathering kind of thing. It's not really safe for that, and still they want you to go walk up to the polls come election time too and be in a mass congregation like that. That's not really safe. And then, who knows what the virus and what it will be like, what the conditions will be like come the time of the election in the fall. So all of this is about safety too, right? And health and safety of people should be priority number one, realistically, for all of these politicians right now. But sad but true, it isn't. And this has been a great conversation, great dialogue from both of you. I think we've hammered a lot of points home. But hearing about this senseless, sinister act by the police there in Minneapolis, uncalled for, should have never happened. And once again, for me, it goes back to having a little bit of heart and looking out for the well-being of others and truly doing your job of protecting others. And those police officers were not doing that in Minneapolis that day. They were not. It's been proven to be true, definitely, with the recording. And now these officers have to live with this act. And once again, like you guys said too, hopefully they're prosecuted. Hopefully they go to jail for a long, long time, because there has to be repercussions put in place moving forward for all of these police officers. If they commit such a violent act and lead to somebody's death, they have to be prosecuted. They have to be, and I hope there is a change legally and with the legal system moving forward as well to help out with this stuff, and hopefully to just make these guys more accountable as well at the end of the day. And I'll leave it at that. With that being said, terrific stuff from both of you. Continue staying safe, staying healthy, and take care.
You too, man. You do the same, man.
You too, Vito.
Thank you.